with young littles. It's been tough. And there's times where, I go to bed feeling like having that mom guilt because I didn't spend enough time with my kids during the day. It's never a perfect balance, and it's always on a teeter-totter. Some days the business gets my full attention and some days the kids do. And when one of those things is getting my full attention, the other goes to the wayside a little bit. And that's just the reality of being a parent and being in business.
All right, welcome back to another episode of the Pay It Forward podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Keegan Walls, and we have the infamous
Austin Seward.
All right, so today we're super excited about the guest that we have on. So she is a mother of two, and she owns a business called Natty West, which is a small business here in Onalaska that focuses on home decor. And she also has a subsidiary business that she is just now starting for interior design called Rosemary Abode. And if that's not enough, and if that's not enough to prove that sometimes your dreams and goals in life can change, she also has a master's degree in Homeland Security. So we want to welcome to the show, Hannah Pintar.
Welcome, Hannah.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So before we even dive into anything else, Homeland Security, master's degree in Homeland Security, how'd that come about? Was it always a passion or?
So in high school, I was the kid who took every science class. I thought that was my direction. I grew up in a medical family. My dad, he's a surgeon. My mom was an ICU nurse. And so clearly that was my direction, just kind of without thinking about it. That's the stuff we talked about at dinner every day. It just kind of made sense to go down the medical path. So I actually went into college with a biopsychology major and thought that was going to be a good way to, integrate the medical side of things that I wanted to pursue with the psychological stuff that I thought would be fun. And then I took my first biology class in college and did horribly and was like, okay, I need to reassess here. So I was trying to figure out a way that I could come up with a similar end result with, a different way of getting there. I knew I wanted to help people. I knew I wanted to do something exciting. And so I ended up taking a 1-credit class that helped me kind of hone in what would be a good direction for my career path. And that ended up being criminal justice. So I switched my major in my second semester of college to criminal justice. And at the time, I had a double major with criminal justice and Spanish. And then eventually to graduate early, I ended up just doing a minor in Spanish, just because it would have probably taken me a whole 2 extra years to get that done. And then when I was done with school, I didn't feel like I knew exactly what I wanted to do, and I wasn't ready to kind of try to go down that path. I was interested in a lot of different things in the criminal justice field. Everybody thinks that you have to be like a police officer or a lawyer, and that's kind of like all you have as your options. But I was really interested in the Department of Justice and in FEMA and things like that, disaster relief, stuff like that. And so I ended up saying, okay, well, my parents helped me through college and I was really lucky. So now I have this kind of blank slate that I can do whatever I want with. So I decided to pursue my master's degree in criminal justice. And that happened I think that was about a 2-year program. During that time, I got married and we found out we were expecting. And I was like, oh no, I can't be a mom that I want to be and be in the field, because that's, those two things don't add up. If you look at people who, live in DC and who are doing that whole thing, or live in Virginia and are, doing the whole FBI, whole deal, like they don't have families, right? And so I realized pretty quickly that I had these kind of clash of interests, and I had to choose what I wanted to do. And since life kind of had already chosen for me, like, you're having kids, and so I just had to kind of say, okay, well, we're going to pursue this other thing that we've got going on. And that's kind of where Natty West came into the picture. So
now Natty West, the business, probably most people know you for, obviously now starting a new one.
Right.
How did that come about? Because didn't it start,
It started when I was in college, kind of as just like a little passion project with my mom. And we were looking for more ways to hang out because I was a student athlete, so I was never home. I was still in lacrosse, so I was able to go to her house whenever I wanted to. But college kids always have excuses not to go home. So we were trying to think of a reason that we could like get together and like intentionally do something. And like I said before, I had this like clash of interests. So I had this interest of doing something in the workplace and thriving there. And I also had this dream of living like a slower life and having a family and, doing the little Hallmark type of thing.
Yeah.
And so, at one point I talked to my mom and I said, I've kind of always had this dream to like own a coffee shop or a flower shop or something. And so she's like, well, why don't we do it? Why don't we just like try and see if we can't get there somehow? So we didn't have any money to invest. We didn't have, anything to put up front right away to get a business started. So we decided to come up with something that would be a really low minimal investment on the front end. And that ended up being candles. It was something that we could kind of recreate and make our own. We noticed that we could fill a need in the community with that. And so we felt it was a really good way to kind of generate some income to potentially fund this dream that we had, but we didn't really realize what that would turn into. So now looking back, we know that it was all leading us here, that, God kind of has his own plans, and our own plans are just, he's like, whatever, you can think what you want, but I'm going to take you in a different direction. And that's what happened. So we had been selling candles, at vendor fairs and, farmers markets, online a little bit. And we had this friend who owned a Bible bookstore, and she, was pretty set on retiring, but she had a couple years left in her lease. And that actually ended up being the spot that we're at now in Natty West. She reached out to us and said, hey, I know you guys have talked about wanting to own a space or own a business and open up a brick and mortar. And I think this could be a really good opportunity. Also, do you want to take over my lease? And we were like, oh, wow. Like, maybe that's something to consider. So we prayed on that. And from the time she asked us to the time we signed the lease was about a month and a half. And then from the time we signed the lease to the time we opened the store was a month. So it was a really fast turnaround. So the way Natty West kind of became what it is today is that we had no inventory, and we were like, oh my gosh, we just signed a lease for 2 years for something we have no idea what we're going to do. What are we going to do? So we went back to all of our friends who we had, met at these vendor fairs, met at farmers markets, and said, hey, would you be interested in consigning with us? And so it kind of turned into this mashup of just local goods, and consignment was a really good way for us to not have to put up any money on the front end again. My mom she's the business person. Like neither of us went to school for business. Neither of us. She just has more life experience. So she's like, we need to do this as cheap as possible. How can we do that? And so that's where the whole consignment thing came. And when we could afford it, we started, bringing in our own inventory, kind of upping the scale of our candles. And now here we are. So
Awesome.
That's how it happened. Yeah.
How long ago was that when you started it?
We started Natty West in 2019. We'd been playing around with candles, I think, for a little bit before that, but we bought our LLC in 2019. Okay. And then we opened our storefront in 2022.
Awesome.
That's great.
Yeah.
Can you explain the name? I'm not.
Yeah. So Natty West, it's something we actually came up with probably a few years before Natty West even happened. We've always kind of wanted to have a business of some sort. And so one night we were having a girls' night watching Friends and like drinking wine and stuff. I was home from college and I was like, Mom, if we ever had a business, what would we call it? And we came up with Natty West because we're from the West Coast. We love Western type things. I grew up on a farm, it just seemed like West needed to be in there. It just kind of speaks to who we are and our background. And then natty is a word for smart and fashionable. It's an old term for smart and fashionable. So it just kind of came about. And then when we decided to open the candle business, we're like, oh my gosh, we have a name. We can finally use it.
It's like a super cool, catchy
Super
name.
cool.
Thanks.
I'm not going to lie. I always just assumed that natty was short for like natural.
That's what I was thinking.
Sure.
You were gonna say.
Home decor.
Sure.
But good to hear I was wrong. So,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Yeah. So what recommendation would you have for somebody who wants to turn their side hustle into a full-time business? So like from hearing you talk, it sounds like it was more born out of the lifestyle that you wanted. I mean, going from working in a corporate or for the government into being your own boss and the lifestyle you wanted to create for you and your family. But what recommendation would you have for somebody who's younger? Maybe they are in college, they're trying to figure out what they want to do, changing majors, not quite sure. What recommendation would you have from turning a side hustle into a full-time business?
I think I definitely, if I could go back and do it again, I would definitely listen to my interests more than what I thought I was good at, and what I thought my aptitudes kind of pointed towards. Like the career tests we all took in high school. It told me I needed to either be like a radiologist or, some type of salesperson or, like an FBI agent. Like those were my options. And that's kind of how I set my life course. I was like, okay, well, that's it. That's what I've got to work with. And, I grew up with parents who really, and there's nothing wrong with this, but I grew up with parents who really valued, the college path. Yeah. And there's a way you do things, and this is the only way to do things and be successful. And to a point, you can get to success that way. But I would just, if I could do it all over again, I would listen to my artistic side more. I would have said, okay, well, I really love to paint on the weekends. I need to dig into that more. Like, what is that about? And that's what I would say, is just kind of listen to your interests more than what people have told you you're good at and what you should do. Yep. Not only that, but if you already have something established, the way we got started with Natty West is, we were talking about earlier, it's all about who you know, but you can also control who you know. So you have to get yourself kind of immersed in the culture that you want to be in. So we started going to vendor markets to get to know people who were good at business. We started going to farmers markets to expand our customer base. And you just have to do those little things that might seem like a lot of work on the front end and kind of inconvenient, but they really pay off. And when you know the people, that's how we got to opening a consignment store. Is we're like in this situation, but we have a solution because we have the people who can help us. Yeah. So I guess that's, if that makes sense, that's kind of how I would go about answering that.
Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah.
Everything in life, no matter what, especially in the business world, is all about, everything boils down to people. On the customer end, on the employee side, but then also just on the expansion and the growth and the actual sustainability of business. Everything is about who you know and making connections and knowing the right people. I'd say for me in my journey, everything has kind of led to that. I knew certain people. I worked for Misty for a while, and a lot of that happened because of the connection that I had with her and her trusting me and kind of taking a shot on me. And I think that's paid off for her, and it has paid off for me as well. And then knowing Josh Newman, and then contacting him and getting connected with real estate. So everywhere I've gotten has always been because of connections and whatever. But then, I also like what you said about passion, that everything's about what my passion and my interest is. And I think life or God has a funny way of sometimes always bringing us back to what that is. Because, I mean, I went from ministry to Misty's and started some media stuff. And I'm like,
For sure.
I kind of like video and media and being goofy. And I don't really have I'm silly and creative. And then all of a sudden, so I'm like, real estate. Like, well, maybe I can make real estate videos, but it didn't quite fill that need. And now all of a sudden, boom, here we are with like a podcast. And it just keeps coming back. Even in ministry, I was making silly videos for the youth group. Misty, I was making silly videos. Now, a little bit more well put together videos. But again, it comes back to, I just keep coming back to video, and I really enjoy it.
I think, too, it's all a process of elimination. Like everyone, you might think that you're going to get it right the first time, or if you don't get it right the first time, you're not going in the right direction. But everything, I am the queen of burnout, and I am the queen of, my life has been a process of elimination. If you look back at my education, I went biopsychology. Nope, that doesn't work. Okay, criminal justice. We'll try that. I really loved my internships, but I burned out in the jobs that I was in so fast over and over again. And I thought there was something wrong with me, but I didn't realize for the longest time, no, it's just, you're just not in the right area. So
I think the modern, well, not modern, but the school system in general does such a disservice of helping people realize what they're passionate about and how they can monetize and make a living out of that. Tough to know what you want to do taking a biology class, unless you want to be a biologist, right?
Unless you're going to do research for a living.
For sure, or criminal justice, like being a cop. All those things are great, but and I think most kids, students know inside what they're passionate about. The meme is popping in my head, but gotta find a way to make money.
Hey, we will right now. I will figure out a way right now to post that meme to this part of the episode.
I gotta figure out how to make money on this thing. It's simply too good. Gotta figure out how to make money on this. I really want to.
That it's over the
true.
top.
If you're passionate about something, you can monetize anything, right? It doesn't matter if it's candles or if it's a podcast or whatever it is. You can find a way to monetize it. And at first, you might not make millions and millions of dollars, but it might build a great lifestyle for you and your family. It will fulfill your deep passions of serving others and like following what you're supposed to do. And I really think most people know that at a young age and know that as a student, but they're told to go down this path. They're told to, I'm not really, this is the degree that I'm going down for sure. But they try to find it in school. And I'm speaking from personal experience. You will not find that in the academic setting. You will find that going and immersing yourself in different things that you're interested in those groups. And I love what you said about immersion. And that's something that I try to do in anything that I'm going after. My wife, Becca, and I are starting this bookkeeping business. And I know enough to be dangerous about bookkeeping and financial statements and stuff like that. But I want to know more. I want to learn more. I want to learn from people who have gone the path before me. And so joining masterminds and like being a part of that community. So I couldn't agree more with that, of immersing yourself in those communities. But really, I think most people do at their heart know that at a young age. They just don't know how to monetize it. So,
and that's good for any young person listening. Maybe you're a little bit younger than your entrepreneurial journey is even starting out. Maybe you are in your high school or finishing up high school or thinking about going to college. And that's just a good lesson that, you know what, we are all so uniquely made. Some people, like my wife, knew immediately from a young age what she wanted to be. She wanted to be a nurse, and she was an incredible nurse. And she knew that's what she wanted. So going to nursing school, that makes sense. But then there's people like I can never fit inside of a box, and I just have so many weird passions and desires and loves that don't ever seem to mesh. So it's always like, is there a single job or anything out there that could ever mix all of them? And when you're young, that is the time to experiment and with jobs and trying to figure out what you like and trying out different things and career paths and opportunities. but there's this pressure on, no, it has to be, I go to high school, I know my degree right away, and then I know my job right away, and I never leave it.
I remember taking an aptitude career test in the 8th grade.
Yeah.
And I think that while it's good intentioned and it, the generation before us, like, it totally makes sense why they would give us that test.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it totally narrows your options, and now you're not looking anywhere else. And as such a young kid, that's a really important time to be exploring your interests. And now I'm being told, okay, well, this is what I'm set for. That's my focus now. Before you were even graduated from high school.
Yep.
That's a big deal.
I took a couple of those and I was terrified. I was like, oh my gosh, you got to be kidding me. That's what I got to do for the rest of my life.
Right. I better study up.
I'm dropping out of school. Oh, my life's going to suck.
But for some people too, a job is it's less about the job and it's more about the lifestyle, right?
Exactly.
And that's kind of what I'm hearing from you as well. I mean, you're obviously passionate about what you do and what you started, but it was also for the lifestyle that it provides for your family. And I mean, there's people that work a job that's probably not the most exciting, and they make an average money, but it's stable. They work 9 to 5. They know they can spend the weekends with their families and the evenings and go home and have dinner and shut it off. And that's completely fine too.
Yeah.
And they don't find their purpose or their passion in their work. They find it in their family life and outside of that. And work is just something that they have to do that. Not for me, but there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, I think too, like, if I'm looking at my own life, the passion really comes from what the job has allowed me to do, because the creative stuff doesn't get to happen every day.
Yeah.
Right.
The creative stuff is like the icing on the cake, and the cake is, being on QuickBooks and, doing the back end work and all of the finance crap that I didn't learn how to do. So now I have to Google it and all of that stuff. But when I, get to sit on my porch at 10 in the morning on a weekday, watching my son play in his little kiddie pool, and I get to hold my daughter, and, I don't have to let somebody else experience those things for me.
Yep.
It's all worth it.
Yep.
That's what's most valuable to me.
Yeah.
For sure.
And I think there's a good lesson to learn from your story too, of like, it wasn't an option to just dip into the 200 grand that's sitting in the bank and buy this inventory and start this business or go find capital. Like you say, hey, it's not an option. Like, we got to find, how can we make this work with what we have without going and raising a bunch of money and like making this big production. Like, started selling candles and took money from candles to lead the direction that you go. So I mean, I don't think you need to go out and raise a bunch of money to start for a lot of people. If you have this vision in your mind, how can you get there with what you have? And I think you did awesome to hear that.
Thank you. Yeah. And luckily, like, we were able to kind of turn it into something that we were really proud of. Like, if I'm being honest, I wasn't super excited about making candles. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
I'd rather be doing something else creative. Like, I had a vision for what I wanted to do, but I didn't exactly love the way to get there. But along the way, we really learned to love the candle making process and making it something that is consumer safe and, eco-friendly and all of those things that, not necessarily the object that I'm super passionate about, but maybe more the experience that it gives people is a benefit too.
Yep.
So, not everything is going to look exactly the way you want it to in the beginning, or, but you learn to make it into something really beautiful.
Yeah.
And it all just starts with taking action and taking that first step, and then trusting the process and following after that dream and passion. You started with the candles, and then it led to the store, and then you found your passion in something that maybe wasn't the perfect fit, but it all starts with, you know what, I got to take action. This is what I want. This is where I want to get. I don't have to have the perfect 3,000-page business plan all ready to go at some point.
We did not.
I just have to go, because we'll never know enough. We'll never know as much as somebody else. And so if that's what's holding us back, at some point, just say yes and take the first step.
Absolutely. And if I didn't have, for me, it was my mom, but if I didn't have somebody telling me, let's just do it, I never would have, because I was so okay with the mold that I'd put myself into. So I am really grateful that I had somebody to tell me, well, let's just try this and see what happens.
Yeah.
Because not everybody has that. So if you're watching this, you should just try it.
What
what
other
happens.
fears did you have starting a business as an entrepreneur? What going out of college? What other fears did you have?
I think the biggest thing was I just got my master's degree and I'm not going to use it. That was really stupid. I went from no debt to a lot of debt in 2 years, and now I'm not even going to put that debt to use.
Yeah.
And I had to kind of wrestle with that. And if it weren't for my husband telling me it's okay, I think I would have just been like, well, that's over with. But yeah, I think the biggest fear was I just made this huge financial investment for my family, and I'm not putting it to use. And is that okay? Because it didn't feel okay based on everything I'd been taught before, you know.
So what would you do differently for somebody who's considering furthering their education and not quite sure what they want to do with it?
Yeah.
What advice do you give to that person?
So that is tough because, you know, I look at that and I say, okay, well, now that I've done it, I can certainly use it someday. I could teach if that's something I ever end up wanting to do, because it's not like I don't love that, you know, area of education still. I still love the material. I love learning about it, and I'm still learning about it. But it's obviously not something that I'm going to be doing with my life. So I can use that as, you know, okay, maybe down the road I can teach with that or something. But if I could do it again, I would just wait. I would just wait and live life a little more and really make sure that that is exactly what I wanted to do, because I think I did it because I wasn't sure. And I was a little scared to go out into the real world and get a job. So I was just like, well, let's just go back to school because that feels comfortable.
Yeah.
That feels safe.
Yeah.
I've done that for the last 4 years, you know, and then before that for my whole life. So school felt safe, and so I just did it. And if I could do it again, I think I would wait.
Safe and expensive.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yep.
Yeah.
Thank gosh I never went beyond one semester. Saved.
Is that all?
I did. Yeah, for those who don't know my college experience, I have a whole semester of college under my belt at the University of Kansas.
A whole one semester.
A whole one semester is unbelievable. Yep.
That's great. So with the rise of e-commerce and online shopping and Amazon, how do you balance that with a brick and mortar store?
So we currently have, you know, a very kitschy little, you know, online setup. It's nothing special. It's mainly just to get candles to customers who don't live here.
Okay.
Who want them. But we don't really go much farther beyond that. We have like our devotionals and things online, but our big focus is because, you know, we're very pro shop local. We want people to come in and experience it physically, because that makes such a huge difference for us on whether or not customers are going to come back. Is if they get to pet Louie, our dog, our shop dog, if they get to, you know, smell the candle we're burning that day, you know, just feeling the quality of products. You don't get to do that online. So we do use social media a lot to constantly remind people the value of coming in physically to a store, and especially a small business. Because when you're doing that, I'm not afraid to tell people, instead of, you know, funding someone else's fourth home in Nantucket, you're, you know, helping my kids go to swim lessons. And that actually like resonates with people. It's not a mean thing to say. It's just the truth. So we're just very honest with our customers and say, we truly appreciate your business, and it would be best spent, you know, your business is best spent physically in the store. You're going to have the best experience there. So any way that we can reiterate that, whether that's through social media, through, you know, trying to keep up with social media trends like reels and all of those things, just constantly showing the benefit of physically coming into the store is kind of how we balance that, because for us there's really no other way. We're a 2-woman show. Maybe, you know, now we have a part-time employee, so like 2.5, and so we can't put everything online. We just can't compete in that way.
Yeah.
So we've just kind of had to figure out something else to do.
But I love that because that's small. Ultimately, small business is the vibrancy and the culture of a community.
Mm-hmm.
Like everything about where you live and your town, whether it's big or small, it's run on small businesses. And we've just gotten to a day and age with everything in technology that it's just way easier to click a button and my package arrives in 2 days. Sometimes it's late. But there is importance of still getting out there and still going to the store and shopping local and supporting local because it's helping our community right here.
Exactly.
And it's just super important. And come on, people, we can all remember the nostalgic feeling of on a Friday night going to a Blockbuster store. Netflix can never
It's so true.
capture that.
Yeah.
Like that's small business. It's the nostalgic like hallmark moment. Man.
It's exactly. It's like watching Netflix versus going to Blockbuster or the movie theater.
Yep.
Like the excitement isn't there. So if the online shopping, sure, you can like doom scroll for hours and find what you want, but you aren't going to walk out of that feeling good about it. You're probably gonna be like, oh crap.
There's a whole experience
yeah.
behind it. Like if I just order one candle on Amazon, okay, I mean the goal was to get a candle and I did get the candle, but I did miss out a little bit on getting out and the experience of it. I can watch a movie and sure, I watched the same movie I would have gotten at Blockbuster, but as a kid and growing up, there is that nostalgic feeling that just shows you it's beyond just the goods. It's the experience and everything that's more than that. It's built into that. And that's small business. That's the DNA of a small business.
And I will say too that is why we like to hold pop-up shops a lot. We hold a lot of pop-up shops with businesses we don't directly work with, but a lot of times with the ones that we do, so that our customers can have a meet the maker experience and they can, ask about why did you start the business? Why did you, what's different about your product? And you can have this one-on-one with a business professional to customer that you wouldn't get to have in an online setting. Maybe you could like online chat with somebody, but it's not the same. And you don't feel like you're valued as a customer when you're shopping online. When someone checks out at our store, they can see the gratefulness on my face. And I think that is something that people enjoy too, is they're seeing, where their money is going. It's not just disappearing.
This was probably not the episode to buy a mini fridge on Amazon right before.
That's a true statement.
Oh,
don't get me wrong. I love Amazon. I do. It's so easy.
We had a discussion about a minute and 30 seconds. We should have a mini fridge in here. And a minute and 30 seconds later, there's a mini fridge on the way, and it'll be at my house tomorrow. But I apologize for that if that offended you.
No, I am an avid Amazon user.
To be fair, I've been to Natty West, and unless they've changed their inventory, we could not have bought
You couldn't have.
any
Right.
fridge at Natty West.
Now, if you would have gone and bought candles,
Right.
I would have been like,
Right.
I don't know, maybe I'm not staying for this podcast.
That's right. No, we did not. We'll buy
We
it.
did not. So let's dive deep into that a little bit for the small business owner that is a local brand. They're a local business that's in-person shopping. What resources are available to those businesses, or what do you suggest people get involved with to get that local community?
Yeah, I mean, the vendor markets were a huge deal for us, and especially in our area, there's so many of them, which it's so good because there's one over in this town, and then the next month there's one in the town next door, and then there's just literally every month there's something going on here. And so if you are local to like the La Crosse area, it's so easy to get involved. All you have to do is pay a vendor fee, and then you get to be there for the day or the weekend, selling your wares or services and meeting everybody. And it's such a good community too, because everybody wants each other to, for the most part, everybody wants each other to succeed.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty, universal that small business owners feel like there is enough room for everybody. And so you just kind of have to ask, for help if you need it. You just have to ask the right questions. And, some people might be like, oh, I don't want to tell you all my secrets. Yeah. But other people will definitely be like, okay, well, this is how I did this. This is how, we got here. they're not afraid to share that. So that's something we do a lot. We have a couple different things happen. So sometimes people will walk in the store and be like, oh, how'd you get started? I'd love to own my own business one day. Love having that conversation.
Yeah.
I love having that conversation. Other people will say, hey, where do you buy your wax and your glass and your wicks and your scents? Because I want to make candles. And we're like, those are two very different conversations. But if you have you've already got your own business established or idea established, like everybody is happy to help and happy to share their resources. But most of it, just like I said, it comes from who you know, and you have to, if you don't know a lot of people, you have to. So how are you going to change that? You have to put yourselves in the situations to do that. And a lot of that around here is vendor markets and farmers markets and all that kind of stuff. So that seems to be
great.
what's popular right now. So that's where everybody is.
Very cool. And so embracing motherhood and business, can you speak to balancing those two? Because your career change, a lot of it had to do with that family.
Yeah.
And now being a full-time mom and a young entrepreneur running her own shop. How have you learned to balance those? Have you, I've seen now you have two, but I've seen your one at the shop with you. What's that like?
Yeah. It goes without saying that it always takes a village. It takes an incredible support system. If I was a single mom, this wouldn't be a possibility. If I didn't have, extended family nearby, we wouldn't have childcare. It wouldn't make sense for me to, be out when I could be home watching my own kids because childcare is so expensive. So we have been very fortunate to have people in our lives that are willing to help make this happen. And one of those things is free childcare. My mom, when I'm not working, she's working, and when she's not working, she's watching the kids. And so it just kind of works like that. As far as in our own household, my husband works from home. So that is another way that we're making this happen because, he can be home with the kids for an hour and allow me to run to the shop if there's an emergency or something like that, which I'm not sure I would be able to do if he wasn't working from home. So it's not to say that that everybody can do it as a mom, with young littles. It's been tough. And there's times where, I go to bed feeling like having that mom guilt because I didn't spend enough time with my kids during the day. It's never a perfect balance, and it's always on a teeter-totter. Some days the business gets my full attention and some days the kids do. And when one of those things is getting my full attention, the other goes to the wayside a little bit. And that's just the reality of being a parent and being in business. But my hope is that when the kids are older, the few times that I have had to, kind of step away from my role of being a mom for, a day or two at a time, that they realize that this was all for them. This was to make it so that down the road we can have more time together when they're a little bit older, because a startup, it's kind of a baby.
Yep.
It's a baby within itself. So I've got 3 babies right now. I've got my business baby and I've got my 2 babies. So you have to give them all attention. But the question is how, and there's really no good answer. You just kind of make it you make it happen because you want to.
Have you learned anything that's helped make either the balance or the rhythm a little bit better?
I think I have gotten really good at multitasking. There are times where I'm sitting in my kitchen with, I've got Bluey on TV with my son eating his lunch, and I've got the baby carrier on, and I'm bouncing like this, and I'm typing to try and get work done. Or I'm working on a 3D rendering for Rosemary Abode, and it takes me a little bit longer. Everything takes a little longer, but it's all getting done at the same time.
Yeah, that's real multitasking.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. So it's just making it happen. If you want to make it happen, you just have to. It's just a matter of, okay, this is going to be a grind, but we're going to do it. And I don't have 8 arms, but I'm going to have to anyway,
Yeah, for sure.
We're just going to have to do it all at once.
And now throw in another up-and-coming business. So speak to Rosemary Abode.
Yeah.
Speak to that.
So it works really well with Natty West, and it kind of happened on its own and in a very organic way. We had people who would come into the shop and want to buy home decor for their homes and would just say, well, I don't really know where to start. Can you help me? And so in my mind, I'm like, okay, well, I could probably monetize this. I could, I'm running around the shop and, asking them to show me pictures of their home and what's your color palette and all of these things. What's a color palette? So let's make a color palette and all of these things. Okay, I'm doing this for free. I should definitely be charging for this, at least, a little something. So about a year ago, when we were opening the store, I reached out to Carson Cox with Rooted Woodworking, and he was going to make us some built-ins, and he was going to make us the countertop at our store for like the checkout area. And kind of through knowing them, they're actually now the godparents to our second child. Like we have just grown so close as friends. And in doing that, I have kind of just come across a really good business mentor friend who has been like, okay, so you are doing interior design and you're not charging for it. What gives? You need to start, figuring that out and turning that into income because you have a family to feed. And that's the truth is, your time is so valuable that it seems like, oh gosh, is that rude of me to like want to charge for that? And
heck no.
Right. But that's
not at all.
I know. But for some reason, like people can get stuck in that, like, oh, this should just maybe be a part of the Natty West experience. And they just get this, but then begs the question, well, where do I raise, where do I up prices?
Yeah.
And, that was something that, I started thinking about it probably almost 6 months after Natty West opened, because so often we were, helping design spaces, and I'd have designers come into our shop to buy stuff for their customers. And I'm like, this is silly. Like I need to make this a service that people have to purchase.
Yep.
Because my time as a mother and as a really overworked business person is too valuable. And for me to want to get to the end goal that I have been dreaming of, which is, living comfortably, I need to charge where it is appropriate.
Yep.
So
100%.
Yeah.
It's either you charge or you're giving away your time.
Exactly.
And I'm not saying don't help people, but when it comes to business and work, your time is money.
It is.
And so at some point you have to charge for it.
And I think you have to have an economic model that can run without you, right? Otherwise you have a job for yourself and you're working for yourself, but it's a job for yourself versus building a business that you can have a couple part-time employees or people that are in the store and working, and you just, at the end of the day, you have to have an economic model that works.
Right. So that's that is why we hired somebody. We initially hired somebody to kind of take over when I had my second child, because I wanted at least to have a month or two of maternity leave, but then we decided to keep her on because she was bringing a different aspect to the store that we didn't have. She was bringing, different customers we didn't have. She just brought something different.
Yeah.
And not only that, but it opened up time. It opened up time to make more money. So I think in business, new business owners are so afraid of hiring too, because it's like, wow, that's a lot of money. They're going to tax the crap out of me on that one. You're so afraid of it. But then, you truly can't afford not to hire, because it's opening up new revenue streams for you, new areas that you have time to focus on. I had time to kind of put up a little bit of an online store. And now that she's working there, I have time to run to the post office and send out candle orders. I have time to work on my interior design and have design meetings because I'm not at the shop every single day. It's kind of starting to do its own little thing that I can, do the back end work on when I need to. But it really is starting to get to a place where I hope it will start running itself.
Yeah.
So
I think, we talk about it in real estate of what are your dollar producing activities, what is your dollar per hour and what you're working on. And I think that is absolutely true. As long as you're replacing that now time that you bought back by hiring that employee and replacing it with a dollar producing activity. If you replace it with going and hanging out on the river more or, playing more golf, then probably not as beneficial. But if you replace it with, now we're going to implement a new service, a part of this business, and vertically integrate this and start design services. And then eventually you build a system and you build a model around that and you bring on somebody part-time. That's how business is built,
right.
By always replacing yourself, but make sure you're putting yourself into a position that's going to generate more revenue.
Absolutely.
So
if it's just you by yourself, great, you have a business, but you're never going to grow.
It's never going to
for
grow.
sure. Yep.
Yeah. You only have so much time.
Yep. 100%.
And when it completely relies on you, that's there is a time limit on that because people will get burnt out, they'll get tired of it. Something's going to happen that there's just going to be no longevity in that business.
That's just anything in life, though. We're not made to do things by ourselves. We are made for help and community and connection. So it only makes sense. So where can people go if they're looking to get some interior design help, or how do they find Rosemary Abode?
So rosemaryabode.com. That is the quickest way to find us. We're also on Instagram, just at Rosemary Abode. And then I also have my Spoke platform. Spoke is where I do all of my design work and where I have my client interfacing. So those are the three places to find us.
Great.
For sure.
And we'll be able to showcase some of your work on our wall behind us eventually.
Yeah, we have dreams and desires for this. We have stuff on the way. And then I was like, wait a sec. You do interior design. If we're going to be limited to me and Austin's brain, this is going to be rough.
Yep. Maybe you'll get like a little sign on a shelf or something.
Rosemary.
Yeah.
Shout out.
Yeah.
Free branding.
Yeah,
Right.
there we go.
Our first sponsor, maybe.
Yeah. Free sponsor.
Wow.
She's already doing. She's doing us the show.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks so much for sharing your knowledge. Now, also, could you pay us?
Yeah, right.
Seems a bit-
Let me just give you all the money I have because I have so much of it.
Right.
So,
Well, that's great.
so where do you see yourself in the next 2 to 3 years? Obviously, starting newer businesses. It's a little bit younger. I don't want to ask where you're going to be in 5 to 10 years.
Yeah.
But where do you hope to find yourself with both of these businesses? Do you hope to find like a third one, branch out from that, or the next 2 to 3 years? What do you visualize in your head?
So we, a little. It's not a super secret, but we are hoping to find a bigger space for our shop, somewhere where we can have like an interior design office and, more of a candle studio, maybe more of a customer immersed experience in making candles, things like that. That would just kind of enhance what we already have. So maybe 2-3 years down the road, we're in a place that's twice as big, hopefully still in the same area. And we have been looking at some things like that. It's just a matter of whether the finances are going to align and whether, if that's really where God wants us to go. We've been kind of in this season of waiting and praying about our direction and, okay, God, if this is what we're supposed to do, just make it happen. And if it doesn't happen, we know it wasn't supposed to happen. If our finances aren't there, it's because it's not the right thing for us. So we're kind of just in this season of waiting to hear what God's got for us next, because we have learned that our ideas don't always work out so well, and God's plan is so much bigger than what we had ever intended. So that's where we're at the moment.
I love it.
Yeah.
Sometimes we just have to wait.
Yep.
Yep.
And that has been pretty tough for us, because we are always kind of the let's make it happen right now kind of thing. Like when I was telling you guys how I was telling my mom my dream of owning a shop of some kind, she's like, let's just do it, you know? And that's how we feel all the time about all the ideas that we have. And so it's having a good balance of, okay, let's take a breath and let's pray on this and make sure that this is the direction that is going to truly advance God's kingdom in the best way that he wants for us, because that's what our business is about. That's the whole reason we're doing this, is to create a space really for people to come and encounter Jesus on some level. That's why we carry the books we do. That's why we play the music we do. It's, one thing that has been really funny that I really love doing to people is they walk in the store, and I think on some level they're encountering the Holy Spirit, because we're not afraid of anointing that place after, certain characters coming in and out of there. And people will walk in and be like, wow, it's so peaceful. I'm like, yeah, it's Jesus. Welcome to our...
Wow, I feel all this in my seat. I feel filled out. And you're like, yeah, that's the Holy Spirit.
Right. And then they're like, oh, weird. And I'm like, okay, come back later. Come back when you're ready.
That's awesome. So can you speak a little bit more to faith and business? So,
yeah.
I mean, we're pretty open in that Jesus is my ultimate passion, and Jesus is everything in life.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's what everything boils down to. So talk about your work and mixing that's your true passion, but using something else for ministry.
Yeah.
Storefront.
So, I mean, we're never gonna, we want to attract people of all kinds into the store. So we're never gonna slap, a sign on the window that says we're Christians, because, that's going to unfortunately drive some people away. So we definitely want you to meet us and to, see the shop, and get to know us. And then, oh, what's that song that's playing? Oh, this is an interesting book. I've never read a devotional before. And kind of just allowing God to show himself through what we already have, instead of trying to be big showboats about it, because we know that that's not how any of us have come into the faith.
Yeah.
We all came into the faith either growing up in it or having a true organic experience with God. And that has to happen. So we have to get your foot in the door, so we're not going to, I don't know, like I said, we're not going to slap a big sign on the window that says, this is our church. I mean, we definitely, we kind of see it that way. Like, this is our ministry, and to us, like, this is what we're doing in our workplace. But we really try to go about it in a subtle yet not so subtle way, if that makes sense. Like, we really want people to walk in and be like, this is what we're about. They're obviously about this. That's a tough question though. I guess I think too it's about how you do business. I think we've learned that in interacting with a lot of businesses, that there is a clear difference in how Christians and non-Christians are okay with conducting their businesses. And we want to make sure that everything we're doing is for God, whatever that might look like. And one of those pieces is, again, not necessarily putting my wants and needs first, but like being open and listening to what God might have for us, even though in the beginning it might not look so appealing, but later down the road, it's like, wow, this, I'm so glad we did this and pursued this, because this is so much better than I ever could have imagined. And I think that's just kind of how it goes in life too, not just business, but. Yeah.
So I have a question.
Yes.
So you mentioned before that you're kind of in a season of waiting, right? Of where does God want me to go or take this business, or if the finances are there, we'll explore this new space or new options. Where is the line, and this is a great question, there's no right answer, but where is the line between waiting on God, and if it's going to happen, it's going to happen, and God feeds the birds, but he doesn't bring the worms to their nest, right? The birds still got to go out and find the worms and do the work, but he will provide. There's plenty of worms for the birds to find. So where is that line between waiting on the direction of God, of hoping that or praying that there will be finances there to do this, versus I know I'm doing this for the right reason, and I can make those finances happen, and we can use those to glorify God and to use this business to glorify God. Where is the line between that, between waiting for a direction and making it happen, but doing it for the right purpose?
I think in all of it, you just have to follow this term is so overused, but it's so true. Just follow the peace.
Yeah.
Like whatever makes, your heart sing truly. Like if you feel like that is where God is taking you, but you may not have gotten a concrete, clear, letter in the mail from Jesus Christ that you should pursue something like, there's, you will know in your heart if it's what you should be doing. And I truly believe that if you have asked God to show you, he will come back with, okay, now I'm going to let you feel this way about it. And so, okay, I feel really good about moving forward in this sense of business or adding a service to my business. And this feels like it's really God honoring, then it probably is. We have just noticed that in our business and in our experience, things have just kind of fell in our laps. And so for now, we're just kind of rolling with that. And if things change up on us a little bit and we're like, okay, well, haven't heard from you in a while, but we feel really good about it, then we're still probably going to pursue that, because ultimately our intentions are for Jesus. And that's really all you need. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. I mean, I really like that question a lot.
That was a good question.
And I would add that if you are a Christian and a Christian business person or employee, ultimately it's a tough question, because it is between that, the answer to that question is your relationship with Jesus.
Exactly.
It is led by the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit might be leading somebody to something else, might be leading you to wait, and somebody else who's in a similar position of, I'm thinking about making this next step. For them, it might be in their heart that God is telling them to go. And so ultimately it comes down to, am I in continual relationship with Jesus and trusting him and following his leadership? But there is no black and white answer.
Right.
But ultimately I have to follow him, because I better not just be calling myself a Christian and not really following after God. I better be following after God fully, and then I know and can trust, because his leadership,
the Holy Spirit is within
the
you.
Holy Spirit
Exactly.
is going to overflow and lead me to where I need to get.
Right.
If you're not really in active relationship, then yes, you might be building your own dream and building your own kingdom. But I can tell you what, you building your own kingdom that is not bringing glory to God, and that is not about advancing his kingdom. And so there is a wrestle, and I think ultimately it's, are you really chasing and following after Jesus? And then it's coming down to your own personal relationship with Jesus and the Holy Spirit living in you.
And you can probably analyze that pretty quickly by asking yourself, is this for me? And if it is for you, then it's probably not, it's... Go ahead.
And wrestle with it.
Right.
Like, we all know the right answer. Too often when we get asked a question, we go, well, no, it's for the right reason. It's like, just because you know the answer, just because you answered the right answer, what's the fruit of it?
For sure.
What's
what's the fruit?
Yep.
Like, what's the fruit of what you're doing? That's probably the heart behind it.
Yep.
Exactly.
And how are you talking and how are you treating people too? Because I mean, out of the heart, out of the whatever the phrase is, out of the overflow of your heart, like speaks your mouth, right? Like if I'm grumpy and angry, my reactions are probably going to be harsh. I'm going to say, no, I'm calm. Well, no, I'm not calm. Not really.
I'm happy
I'm
about
anxious
it.
or angry about this, or I'm maybe not in a good place and not where I need to be. Like, yeah, it's a deep question. You could probably spend 3 episodes on that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Well, this was great.
Yeah.
This was awesome.
Yeah,
Thank you so
really
much
good.
for coming on,
Yeah.
and I'm sure our guests will soon see the lovely display by
Thursday,
Hannah.
right?
No. At some point, sometime in the future. But yeah, sincerely, great
Yeah,
conversation.
thank you so much, Hannah.
Conversation. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Hey, everybody. Thanks so much for tuning in. We sincerely hope that you found value in today's episode and heard one thing that you can take back and implement into your life today. As always, we appreciate your support and hope you can find a way this week to pay it forward.